When times get tough, most people today rush to stock up gear, gadgets and prepackaged survival kits that promise security in uncertain times. But here's the hard truth. During the Great Depression, the generation that lived through the harshest economic collapse in modern history didn't have any of that. No multi-tools, no solar generators, no tactical backpacks. And yet they endured over a decade of scarcity, rationing and uncertainty, not just surviving, but adapting in ways that still put most modern preppers to shame. Their secret wasn't technology or gear, it was resourcefulness. It was a mindset that treated waste as sin, necessity as opportunity, and hardship as a teacher. That Depression-era wisdom, more than any bug-out bag or gear checklist, remains the most powerful survival skill you can master today. The people who survived the Depression didn't prepare for a crisis. They lived through one. The 1930s didn't just test America's economy, it tested its people. Families lost homes, savings and land. Food shortages and unemployment forced millions to rethink everything they knew about work and survival. And yet, instead of collapsing, many found ways to stretch the little they had, because they'd been raised in a world where nothing was wasted and every skill had value. While today's preppers focus on accumulation, Depression-era survivors focused on function. They knew how to cook from scraps, repair what was broken, and barter what they couldn't afford. This wasn't theory or hobby, it was daily life. They didn't wait for ideal tools, they made them. They didn't stockpile food. They learned to grow it, preserve it, and make it last through seasons. That mindset is worth more than any amount of modern survival gear. Because when the lights go out and the supply chains fail, knowing how to use what you have, not just owning it, is what keeps you alive. They mastered the art of repurposing, a lost survival skill. During the Depression, nothing went to waste. Flour sacks became dresses, coffee cans became planters or grease jars. Even broken tools were reforged, filed down, or turned into something new. That ability to repurpose gave every object multiple lives and eliminated dependence on buying replacements. Today, that same principle applies directly to modern prepping. Instead of hoarding brand-new items, focus on adaptability. For example, a single 5-gallon bucket can serve as a water filter housing, a cooking pot, a wash basin, or even an emergency toilet if you know how to use it. Depression-era thinking trains you to view every object by its potential, not its original label. A practical way to build this habit is through deliberate reuse. The next time you're about to throw something away, stop and ask, how else could this serve me if I had no access to stores? That single shift in perspective is how people in the 1930s stretched what little they had. How you can strengthen your own self-reliance today. Food security wasn't about stockpiling, it was about production and preservation. You know, modern preppers often fixate on how much they can store. But Depression-era families didn't have that luxury. They relied on gardens, root cellars and canning jars, systems that made food sustainable rather than just consumable. Every home garden wasn't a hobby. It was really an insurance policy. Every jar of beans or peaches sealed in a hot water bath meant survival through the winter. If you want to apply that wisdom today, well, start small but be consistent. Grow staple crops that can be preserved. Potatoes, beans and carrots are a good foundation. Learn canning not as a nostalgia skill, but as a practical necessity. You can build a modern version of a Depression-era root cellar using simple materials, a cool, shaded corner of your basement or a buried, insulated box outdoors. It doesn't require fancy refrigeration or electricity. Just an understanding of temperature and airflow. These practices turn short-term food into long-term resilience. In a world where most households rely entirely on supply chains, this self-sufficiency is one of the most practical survival advantages you can have. Bartering and community were stronger than any bug-out plan. One of the most overlooked aspects of Depression-era survival was interdependence. Neighbours traded what they had: eggs for flour, labour for repairs, fabric for produce. Entire rural communities functioned like microeconomies. Survival wasn't isolationist, it was cooperative. Modern prepping culture sometimes encourages a lone wolf mentality, the idea of escaping to the woods with your gear. But history shows that cooperation is a far more sustainable model. During the Depression, families who networked and bartered thrived longer than those who tried to go it alone. If you want to practice this today, well, start local. Get to know your neighbours. Trade skills instead of money. Carpentry for gardening. Mechanical repairs for food preservation lessons. Build trust before it's needed. Because when systems fail, it's the strength of your local network that determines how long you can endure. Depression-era resourcefulness made every person a multi-skilled survivor. The Great Depression turned ordinary people into blacksmiths, farmers, seamstresses and mechanics. It wasn't specialization that kept them alive. It was versatility. They could adapt to whatever the day demanded. Today, we've become dependent on convenience. But real preparedness means rediscovering practical, usable skills. If your stove breaks, can you cook over wood? If your shoes tear, can you repair them? If you lose power for a week, can you light your home without electricity? These questions may sound simple, but the Depression-era generation had answers for all of them. Building this kind of versatility doesn't require going off-grid. It starts with learning through practice. Try sewing a torn shirt by hand instead of tossing it. Cook a week's worth of meals using only cast iron and firewood. Fix a leaking pipe using salvage materials. These small exercises build the kind of self-reliance that Depression survivors live by every day. The real prepper's advantage is mindset, not material. The most valuable lesson from the Great Depression isn't what people owned, it's how they thought. They understood the value of patience, thrift, and persistence. They made do with what they had and wasted nothing. That mindset turns scarcity into strategy. Modern prepping often forgets this. Having gear is useful, but gear without wisdom is dead weight. A Depression-era survivor could thrive with almost nothing because they had knowledge. How to stretch food, repair tools, and share resources. Those habits, learned through hardship, are still more relevant today than ever before. So, forget the gear checklist for a moment. Build your resilience from the inside out. Learn to live with less. Teach your hands what your mind knows. Practice improvisation until it becomes instinct. Because when hard times return, and they always do, it won't be the one with the biggest stockpile who lasts. It will be the one who knows what to do when everything runs out. For more timeless survival lessons drawn from history's hardest eras, from Depression-era self-reliance to frontier fieldcraft, make sure you subscribe to Backyard Wisdom, share this video, and help preserve the old knowledge that will keep the next generation ready for whatever comes next.